A long, long time ago, 1978, I discovered a man named Harold Mortimer Lamb. And his estate, after his death, came to the art gallery of Greater Victoria, where I was working. And I have always thought it's a wonderful story. I'd love to write the story. I'd like to put on the exhibition of everything he gave to the art gallery and tell his biography. So over the years, I kept adding bits for my knowledge to that. But Mortimer Lamb was the father of Molly Lamb Boback, famous Canadian artist. She lives in New Brunswick, but I found out she was coming here every year to visit her daughter, who lives here. And so one year, Molly had an exhibition here out at her daughter's farm near the airport. It was called the Maple Stirrup Riding Academy. And so I went out and I interviewed Molly at the farm, a most interesting place, and I met her daughter at the time. This happened 2 or 3 times. First I interviewed Molly about her paintings, and once we got that over with, then I started probing for details about her father. Because Molly was an illegitimate child, the daughter of her father and his housekeeper. And I wanted to know what the story was about that. And so I kept asking her questions, and later I decided I'd just do it by telephone and would call her in New Brunswick. And she told me everything she could remember about her father. But in this time, I got to know Molly's daughter, Annie, whose farm it was. Big old, very old farmhouse filled with his paintings and her mother's paintings and antiques and all sorts of things. And Annie wrote some books about her life on the Heritage Farm. The first one was called Home, Tales of a Heritage Farm. The second one was called Home and Away. And the third one is called, I don't know what, the home is in the title. And they're very quirky and amusing storybooks. I really, really enjoyed them. And the books had some of her mother's paintings illustrated in them, and some by her father, Bruno Boback. And it also had poems by friends of hers like Lorna Crozier, who's a famous poet, and they have recipes and different things. But all that beautiful pictures and things were crammed into a little storybook, and it really didn't do them justice. By this time, Annie's publisher and my publisher are both Touchwood editions, and I went to Ruth Linka at Touchwood and I said, you know, I think you got it wrong. I think we should take Annie's best stories and present them as a coffee table book with full-page reproductions of her mother's paintings, her father's paintings, recipes, poems, you know, really make a nice production of it. And Annie had asked me if I would paint the farm too, because there aren't any pictures of the farm in the books, which seemed like an oversight. So I got ready to do this and went out and visited and photographed the farm and so on. But the publisher said to me, look, it's a great idea, but we've got all these books to sell, and we're not going to reprint a new edition of her books while we still have the old ones. But Annie has sold the farm, and she's moving to James Bay. So why don't the two of you get together, and when she comes to Victoria, she can explore Victoria, go around and meet and do things, and you can help her and suggest places she might like to go, and then you can make up the pictures, or you can show her the pictures you got, and she can go and interview the people, or, you know, do something together. And it turned out to be a really good idea. Annie was quite worried about it in the beginning, because she, you know, it was a big change for her moving to Victoria, and to write about something that she didn't know about rather than to tell the stories she really knew very well. And at the first, she wrote almost a whole book about James Bay, but then thought, oh, that's not it at all. I have to come back. But sometimes Annie and I get together and we go driving around. We go out to Cadborough Bay or in Fernwood and visit places she'd become interested in. And I kept on painting pictures and she kept on writing the stories, and we worked it all through. As it was handed in to the editor, though, Annie was really concerned. She didn't think that anybody would ever want to read it at all, and she really didn't think it was working out well. And the first time she got it to the editor sent it back with all kinds of suggestions, and she was really shattered by this. She was ready to just like give up the whole thing. But well, I encouraged her, and I suppose somebody else did too. But anyway, she made adjustments and sent it back in. And then the editor started saying, "This is fabulous, this book is going to sell so well, everybody's going to love this." And then she didn't believe them. She really didn't think that they could be telling the truth, because how could anybody be interested in this stuff? Anyway, with some trepidation, she finished it off, and I finished off more than 100 paintings for it, and we handed it in, and they published it, and sure enough, the book has just, like from the word go, has been flying off the shelves. That's what Jim Monroe said to us when we did a signing at Monroe's not long back. It just came out in, I think, in end of March, and already they're into a second printing of it. So great things come of it. I hope so. But the next book I'm doing is the biography of her grandfather, and it will also be an exhibition at the Art Gallery of Greater Victoria. It opens on November 14th. Mortimer Lamb gave the gallery a lot of things. He gave them a considerable amount of money to be used for art purchases only, and he gave them everything he had at home of interest. The gallery accessioned 192 artworks into its collection from what he gave them. He was a very famous photographer in the early part of the 20th century, and they got all his photographs and papers and gave them to the provincial archives, which have, I don't know, more than 300 of his photographs there and all of his papers. So I've been working on that for years, and that's about to come out too.